Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Trina Robinson couldn't shake the tight feeling sitting in her chest. She had managed to keep her composure ever since she and Kai slipped out of Drew Kane's house after that reckless break-in, but the aftermath hung over her like a storm cloud that refused to move. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow looked suspicious, and every time her phone buzzed, her heart nearly jolted out of her body. She kept telling herself it would blow over, that no one would ever connect them to the break-in, that what they took would stay buried. But deep down she knew better. Trouble in Port Charles never stayed hidden, not for long. And the moment she saw Curtis Ashford walking toward her with that serious expression, she felt the dread crystallize. "Trina, we need to talk," Curtis said, his voice low. She swallowed hard. "About what?" Curtis folded his arms. "I just got a call from the PCPD. They want to ask you some questions about an incident involving Drew's house." Trina's stomach dropped. Curtis, I don't know what they think I did." Curtis gave her a long look, the kind that made her feel 14 years old again. "I'm on your side. Always. But if there's something you need to tell me, now's the time." She shook her head, keeping every muscle in her body still. "There's nothing to tell." Curtis didn't buy it. She could see it in the way his gaze softened with worry rather than anger. "All right. But you need to call your mother. And we're going to the station together." As he walked away to give her some space, Trina pressed her hands over her face. She felt the panic clawing at her throat, and the image of Kai's face flashed across her mind. His calm, dangerous smirk as he'd pushed open that window at Drew's. "Relax," he'd whispered that night. "We're in and out. Drew won't even notice." But Drew had noticed. And now everything was unraveling. Meanwhile, across town, Drew Kane stood in the living room of his own house, his jaw tight as he watched Dante search for more clues. The once neat space now felt tainted. Someone violated his home, went through his things and took something they shouldn't have. Drew exhaled sharply. "Any update?" Dante paused, examining the window lock. "There's evidence someone forced this. But whoever did it knew what they were doing." Drew rubbed his temples. "It doesn't make sense. Why here? Why me? Could be connected to your time with the Navy, or to what happened at Aurora, or somebody trying to get leverage on you," Dante said. Sam emerged from the hallway holding her phone. "Dante, the security system didn't trigger?" "Nope," Dante said. "Which tells me whoever broke in knew how to disable it." Drew narrowed his eyes. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Sam sighed. "I hope I'm wrong. But it feels targeted." Dante's expression turned serious. "And there's something else. I got a tip, anonymous. Said we should look closer at who Drew has recently helped." Drew frowned. "What does that mean?" But before Dante could answer, one of the uniformed officers walked over. "Detective? We found this outside the window." Dante took the small cloth scrap, examining it. "This looks like fabric from a hoodie, modern, expensive stitching." Sam crossed her arms. "Someone young." Dante didn't confirm aloud, but the silent answer hung between them. Drew's eyes hardened. Whoever it was, they're not getting away with this. Still reeling, Trina rushed to the park to meet Kai. She found him sitting casually on the bench like he hadn't a care in the world. "Kai," she snapped. "The PCPD wants to question me." Kai turned his head slightly, offering her that maddeningly calm half-smile. "About Drew's place?" "Yes, about Drew's place." Trina hissed. "I told you this was a bad idea." Kai stretched his arms across the back of the bench. "Relax. They don't have proof." Trina stared at him in disbelief. "You don't know that." Her voice trembled. "Curtis could tell something's wrong. I can't lie to him." "Then don't lie," Kai said. "Just don't say anything incriminating." Trina groaned and paced in front of him. "You promised this wouldn't come back on me." Kai stood, closing the space between them. "And I meant it. Drew wasn't supposed to be home. And we were careful." Trina glared at him. "Were we?" She lowered her voice. "Did you leave anything behind?" Kai shook his head. "No." Trina pressed him harder. "Are you sure?" He took a long breath. "Okay. There's a chance they'll find fibers. Or maybe the camera got a glimpse, but I wore a mask, Trina. So did you. She stepped back horrified. You said the cameras were disabled. I disabled them after they took a snapshot, Kai admitted. What? Trina's voice cracked. Kai, that's enough. I'm done. I'm not covering for you anymore. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed again. A text from Curtis, we need to leave. Now. Tears pricked her eyes. I have to go. Kai grabbed her wrist gently. Trina. Trust me. She pulled her arm free. I can't. Not anymore. At the PCPD, the air felt thick and suffocating. Jordan Ashford greeted Trina with a sympathetic but firm expression. Trina. Thank you for coming in. Trina nodded nervously. I understand. Portia arrived moments later, frazzled and frantic, scolding and hugging her daughter at the same time. Curtis stayed close, keeping a steady hand on Portia's shoulder. Jordan sat down across from Trina. We're not arresting you, but we do have some questions. Portia jumped in. Jordan, my daughter has done nothing wrong. I'm not saying she has, Jordan replied calmly. But we received footage from a nearby street cam the night of the break-in. Trina's heart stopped. Jordan continued, clicking her tablet screen to show an image. It's not clear. Faces are covered. But the height, build and timing fit someone matching Trina's profile. And another individual. Portia gasped. This is ridiculous. That could be anyone. Jordan watched Trina closely. Trina. Do you recognize the other person? Trina's throat tightened. She saw Kai's outline in the grainy image. The raised hood, the familiar stance, the way he turned his head just like he did earlier that day. She felt sweat trickle down her spine. No, she whispered. I don't. Jordan nodded slowly, though she clearly didn't believe it. Did you go near Drew Kane's house that night? For any reason? No, Trina said again, her voice barely audible. Curtis leaned forward. Trina, are you sure? She looked at him, her eyes pleading silently. I'm sure, she whispered. But as she stared at the floor, Jordan tapped her pen against the table. We're going to need your fingerprints for exclusion. Portia exploded. Exclusion? Jordan, are you serious? It's standard procedure, Jordan said. Trina felt dizzy. Do I have to? We can request them legally, Jordan said. But your cooperation would help your case. Curtis squeezed Trina's hand. We'll do it. But we want a lawyer present. Jordan nodded. That's fine. But the damage was already done. Back at Drew's house, Sam stepped aside as Spinelli rushed in, laptop in hand. Drew, Dante. I have something. Dante raised a brow. You hacked into the street cams already? Spinelli grinned proudly. Oh no. I hacked the hack used to wipe Drew's system. Whoever disabled his cameras used a very distinct digital signature, and I traced that signature to a known associate. Drew leaned forward. Who? Spinelli took a breath. Kai Thompson. Sam stiffened. That's the guy Trina has been hanging around. Drew's expression darkened. Why would Kai target me? Spinelli tapped a key and brought up a file. Because Kai has ties to an underground art theft ring. And Drew, well, you have files in your safe involving your time with the Navy, files valuable on the black market. Drew stared at him. But the safe wasn't cracked. Spinelli nodded. Not fully. But they attempted it. Someone stopped them. Or they ran out of time. Dante said quietly. Trina was with Kai recently. Everyone went silent. Drew shook his head slowly. No. She wouldn't do this. Sam frowned. But if she didn't know Kai's intentions? Dante sighed. Either way, we need to bring Kai in. And Trina? Drew asked. Sam spoke softly. Drew. If she was involved even unknowingly, the truth is going to come out. Hours later, Trina returned home, shaken and exhausted. Portia hovered like a storm cloud, while Curtis paced across the living room. Honey, Portia said softly, if there's something you need to tell us. Trina's voice rose in panic. I didn't do anything. Portia and Curtis exchanged a worried look. Just then, the door opened and Spencer Cassadine appeared, breathless and wide-eyed, clearly having just heard the news. Trina, he said. Tell me it isn't true. Trina broke completely, sinking onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Spencer rushed to her side. Spencer, she cried. I messed up. I messed up so badly. Curtis froze. Portia covered her mouth. Spencer whispered. Trina, what did you do? She shook her head violently. I can't. If I tell you, everything will get worse. Spencer cupped her face gently. It's already bad. The only way out is telling the truth. Curtis added softly. Trina, whoever dragged you into this, whoever made you feel trapped, we can help. But not unless you tell us. Trina let out a broken sob. Kai, he said it was harmless. He said we just needed to retrieve something. I didn't know it was Drew's house. Not until we were inside. Portia gasped. Oh my God. And when I realized, Trina cried harder. I wanted to leave. But Kai told me it was too late. Curtis clenched his fists, fury blazing in his eyes. Where is he now? Trina shook her head. I don't know. Spencer turned to Curtis. We have to tell the PCPD. Trina grabbed Spencer's arm. No. If they arrest me. Spencer pulled her into a tight embrace. They won't. We won't let them. But hiding the truth will only make it worse. Trina wept against him, her entire body shaking. At that moment a loud knock echoed through the house. Curtis opened the door to find Dante and Jordan standing there. Curtis, Dante said. We need to talk. Portia tensed. What now? Dante stepped forward. We have evidence linking Kai Thompson to the break-in. And we believe Trina was with him. Portia shouted. She just told us. Jordan spoke gently. Trina, we need your official statement. Spencer held Trina tighter. She's scared. Can you give her a minute? Dante nodded. Of course. Trina wiped her eyes, trembling. I'll tell you everything. I don't want to lie anymore. Jordan pulled out her recorder. Whenever you're ready. Trina explained everything. How Kai manipulated her. How she didn't know the target. How she panicked. How she begged to leave. And how she tried to undo the damage but couldn't. When she finished, Dante nodded softly. Thank you. That helps. Curtis asked. What happens now? Dante answered. We're issuing a warrant for Kai. But Trina, legally you may still face consequences. Portia put an arm around her daughter. She was coerced. Jordan said gently. That will be taken into account. Trina whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Jordan looked at her kindly. You made a mistake. But you did the right thing today. As the officers left, Spencer sat beside Trina, taking her hand. Curtis and Portia stayed close, their fear mixed with hope. Spencer whispered. We'll get through this. I promise. But even with Spencer's arms around her and her family by her side, Trina knew one thing for certain. Her life in Port Charles would never be the same again. The heavy oak door of Drew Kane's penthouse swung shut with a soft, definitive click, sealing the space in a tomb-like silence. The only light spilled from the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the minimalist furnishings in the cold blues and grays of the Port Charles night. To the casual observer, the scene was one of undisturbed order, a testament to a life meticulously managed. But for Trina Robinson, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, every shadow seemed to hold an accusatory stare. Every quiet corner seemed to whisper of their transgression. Beside her, Kai, her mother Portia's nephew whose visit had spiraled into this nerve-shredding conspiracy, clutched a sleek external hard drive as if it were both a holy relic and a live wire. The air itself felt charged, thick with the scent of their anxiety and the lingering ozone of activated electronics. We shouldn't have done this, Trina breathed, the words barely audible. Her eyes, wide and luminous with fear, scanned the sterile room. This is so far over the line, it's in another universe. Breaking and entering? Theft? My mother would have a coronary. And Spencer? God, what would Spencer think? Her fiancé's face, usually a source of such warmth and strength, flashed in her mind, contorted with disbelief and disappointment. The guilt was a physical weight, anchoring her to the expensive Turkish rug. Kai, though pale, wore a mask of defiant resolve. His own hands were steady, a contrast to the turmoil in his eyes. We had to, Trina. You know we did. This isn't about crossing lines anymore. It's about uncovering the truth that's being buried. Drew is hiding something monumental about Wiley's custody, about Michael, about the entire Quartermain Corinthos empire. You heard the whispers the same as I did. The legal documents that vanished, the sealed records, the way Drew shut down every conversation about the past. This, he hefted the hard drive, isn't theft. It's retrieval. It's justice for a kid who doesn't even know his own story. His words, meant to bolster, only deepened her dread. The justification felt flimsy here, in the violated sanctum of a man who, despite his recent enigmatic behavior, had been a pillar in her life, a mentor, her boss at the Invader, almost a friend. She thought of Carly, of Jocelyn, of the intricate web of loyalties she was now threatening to shred with her reckless actions. Yet, beneath the terror, a stubborn ember of conviction glowed. Kai was right about the shadows surrounding Wiley's life. The puzzle pieces of the past few months, Drew's sudden, intense focus on corporate power plays, his evasiveness with Michael, the chilling calm with which he'd navigated the latest custody hearing, they didn't fit the man she thought she knew. We need to go. Now, Trina insisted, her voice gaining a sliver of strength, before the security system resets or a patrol car decides to circle the block. They moved like ghosts through the penthouse, retracing their steps with painstaking care, erasing any trace of their presence. A cushion plumped here, a desk drawer closed with silent precision there. The high-stakes hack into Drew's biometric lock and the temporary loop they'd engineered into the building's security cameras had been Kai's domain, a terrifying showcase of skills he'd acquired in realms he only vaguely alluded to. Exiting the building through the service entrance, the humid night air felt like a reprieve, but it was short-lived. The hard drive in Kai's backpack felt radioactive, a beacon announcing their crime to the world. The following morning, dawn broke over Port Charles with a deceptive calm. At the Courtemain mansion, chaos was already the breakfast special. Tracy was lecturing a bleary-eyed Ned about boardroom strategy, while Brooklyn anxiously practiced a new song, her notes clashing with the clatter of Silver's best china. Drew Kane entered, looking every inch the composed executive in a tailored suit. But those who knew him well, like Michael Corinthos, who was sipping coffee with a tense jaw, saw the slight tightness around his eyes, the hyper-awareness in his stance. Drew, we need to talk, Michael began, setting his cup down with a force that rattled the saucer. The revised proposal for the ELQ merger with Aurora. It completely sidelines the charitable foundation for families in Wiley's situation. We agreed that was non-negotiable. Drew met his gaze, his own devoid of their usual camaraderie. Circumstances evolve, Michael. The board's priorities have shifted. Sentiment can't dictate billion-dollar mergers. His tone was cool, analytical, a stark contrast to the passionate advocate for second chances he'd once been. The debate escalated, a familiar duel of wills between the cousins. Tracy watched with shrewd interest, while Olivia cast worried glances between them. The argument was cut short by Drew's phone vibrating. He glanced at the screen and a micro-expression, a flicker of something dark and alert, crossed his face before his perfect mask snapped back into place. Excuse me. A security matter at the penthouse. Nothing to worry about. His exit was too quick, too controlled. Meanwhile, across town in a cramped but cozy apartment, Trina stared at the hard drive now connected to Kai's heavily encrypted laptop. The screen's glow illuminated their faces, pale and drawn from a sleepless night. Folders with cryptic names filled the display. Aurora Acquisition Archives, Pikeman Legacy, W.Q. Custody Original. Each click of the mouse was a leap into deeper waters. This is it, Kai whispered, opening a scanned document. The original custody agreement from when Willow first got sick. Look at the annotations. Drew's handwriting, notes about leveraging Corinthos' liabilities, contingencies for maternal reinstatement. This isn't just legal planning, Trina. This is tactical. Trina's hand flew to her mouth as they opened a video file. It was security footage from inside the old Pikeman facility, dated from around the time Drew had been held there. But the Drew on screen, though battered, was engaged in what looked like a tense but coherent negotiation with a captor, not the brutalized, brainwashed victim the world had believed. What is this? She gasped. He told everyone he had no memory, that he was tortured in isolation. He was negotiating, Kai said slowly, piecing it together. For information. For leverage. This isn't the footage that was in the official record. This was buried. The narrative of Drew as a purely noble victim, a pawn in Victor Cassidy's games, began to crack and splinter before their eyes. Then they found the communications. Emails dated over the past year, between Drew and a shell corporation linked to a known ruthless corporate raider. They discussed softening up ELQ stock, exploiting family schisms, and acquiring key assets through custodial control. One phrase, cold and clinical, made Trina's blood run cold. The child Wiley is the linchpin. His secure placement ensures Michael's compliance during the transition of power. He's using Wiley, Trina choked out, tears of rage and betrayal welling up. All this time he's been using Wiley as a financial instrument. A tool to control Michael and secure his own position. The Drew Kane they were uncovering was a strategist of ice-cold calculation. One who saw family not as a bond, but as a vector for influence. Their horrifying revelation was interrupted by a frantic knocking. Trina, her heart in her throat, opened the door to find Jocelyn Jacks, her best friend, looking frantic. Trina, have you seen the news? There was a break-in at Drew's penthouse last night. Security footage was looped, but the building super found a discrepancy in the log files. The police are involved. And, Jocelyn's eyes were wide with confusion and concern. Drew is telling Mom that he thinks it was an inside job. Someone who knew his schedule, his security protocols. Trina's world tilted. She forced her face into a semblance of shock. Drew's? That's terrible. Is anything missing? He's being cagey, Jocelyn said, stepping inside. Oblivious to the laptop screen Kai was hastily minimizing. But he's furious. He told Mom he won't rest until whoever did this is exposed and crushed. He's talking about corporate espionage, about enemies trying to undermine him before the ELQ vote. Jocelyn's gaze, however, lingered on Trina's pale face, on the unnatural stiffness in her posture. A lifetime of friendship bred a certain radar. Trina, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. The noose began to tighten with terrifying speed. At the Port Charles Police Department, Detective Harrison Chase, already stretched thin by the usual wave of mayhem, found himself assigned to the high-profile break-in. Drew Kane was a powerful man, and his call to Commissioner Ashford had carried serious weight. The initial evidence was perplexing. No forced entry, a sophisticated digital override on the door and cameras, nothing obviously stolen. It spoke of a professional or someone with very specific knowledge. Drew, sitting across from Chase in the precinct interview room, was a portrait of steely anger. This wasn't random, Detective. This was targeted. They bypassed a military-grade system. They knew what they were looking for. He leaned forward, his intensity filling the small space. I want you to look closely at anyone with a grudge against my business interests. And at anyone with undue influence over or resentment toward my family. Sometimes the threat comes from where you least expect it. The suggestion was deliberate. A seed planted. That seed found fertile ground quicker than anyone anticipated. As Chase began his inquiries, a rumor, sourceless and venomous, snaked through the halls of Jitch and the tables at Kelly's. Maybe the break-in was connected to the bitter custody disputes around Wiley Quartermain Corinthos. People recalled the fierce battle with Nina Reeves, the tensions between Michael and Drew. Whispers began, subtle at first, that perhaps someone seeking an advantage in that arena had taken a desperate step. The rumor reached Nina at Crimson. A slow, brittle smile touched her lips. Her war with the Quartermains and Corinthos clan was eternal, and any scandal that shook them was a gift. She saw an opportunity not just for schadenfreude, but for deflection. If attention was on a mysterious burglar, perhaps less would be on her own recent manipulations. She made a carefully anonymous call to a tip line, suggesting the police might look at disgruntled family members with a history of impulsive actions, her description artfully pointing toward individuals like Michael, or even those close to him. But Drew had a sharper, more specific target in mind. He requested a private word with Chase after the formal interview. Detective, there's one person I've had difficulties with lately. Trina Robinson. She works for me at the Invader. She's become increasingly hostile, questioning my decisions, siding with Michael on editorial matters. She's also exceptionally tech-savvy, and has a personal connection to my family through her fiancé. She was recently in my penthouse for a work briefing. She had opportunity to study the layout, the security. He delivered the accusation with chilling plausibility, layering half-truths over the monstrous lie. He was constructing a narrative, and Trina was being cast in the lead role. Chase, a good cop with a strong moral compass, was uneasy. He knew Trina. He respected her. But procedure was procedure, and Drew Kane was a compelling accuser. He brought Trina in for a voluntary conversation. The atmosphere in the interview room was a far cry from her previous friendly interactions with Chase. "Trina, where were you night before last between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.? Chase asked, his tone neutral but firm. "I was at home. Studying," Trina said, the lie tasting like ash. She could feel Kai waiting nervously in the hallway, a silent accomplice. "Can anyone verify that? My mother was on shift at the hospital. I was alone." She met his gaze, trying to project innocence. "Why, detective? What is this about?" The break-in at Mr. Kane's residence occurred in that window. The method used required advanced technical skills. Chase paused, watching her closely. "Mr. Kane mentioned you two have had professional disagreements. That you've been in his penthouse recently." Trina's blood ran cold. Drew was pointing the finger at her. The betrayal was so profound it stole her breath. This wasn't just about getting caught. This was about being preemptively framed by the man whose secrets they'd stolen. "We have disagreements sometimes, sure," she managed, her voice trembling slightly. "That doesn't mean I would break into his home. I respect Drew. I looked up to him." The past tense slipped out, a tiny crack in her facade. Chase saw the tremor, the flash of anger beneath the fear. It didn't look like the guilt of a thief to him. It looked like the shock of someone who had just been blindsided by a person they trusted. But his hands were tied. "I have to ask, Trina, did you, or did you not enter Drew Kane's penthouse on Tuesday night?" The direct question hung in the air, a trap. A denial would be a lie under potential police scrutiny. A truth would be a confession to a felony. "I am not answering that without a lawyer present," she stated, the words feeling both cowardly and smart. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Word that Trina Robinson had been questioned by the police, that she'd lawyered up, spread like wildfire. At Kelly's, gossip swirled. At the hospital, poor Trina Robinson heard the whispers and confronted her daughter in a tearful, terrified rage. Unable to believe Trina could be involved but shattered by the mere possibility. Spencer Cassadine, upon hearing the news, rushed to Trina's side, his love for her warring with a gut-churning fear. "Tell me you had nothing to do with this, Trina. Just tell me and I'll believe you," he pleaded, his hands gripping hers. Looking into his earnest, worried eyes, Trina faced an impossible choice. The truth would devastate him and implicate her in a crime. A lie would build their future on a foundation of sand. She chose a painful middle path. "Spencer, I can't talk about it. Please just trust that my reasons, if I did anything, were for what I thought was right. To protect someone who couldn't protect themselves." It was as close to a confession as she could muster without saying the words. Spencer recoiled, his face crumbling. "Oh God, you did it." The realization was a physical blow. His Trina, the most principled person he knew, was a criminal. The idealized future he'd built in his mind, their life together, free of the Cassadine shadows, seemed to fracture. While Trina's personal life imploded, the evidence against her began to mount in alarming, fabricated ways. Chase discovered a digital footprint, a VPN login traced back to a public server near Trina's apartment, that matched one used to research Drew's security system. A witness, a janitor paid handsomely for his silence by one of Drew's shadows, came forward to claim he'd seen a woman matching Trina's description lurking near the service entrance that night. Drew, the victim, was the picture of pained disappointment. "I didn't want to believe it," he told a somber gathering at Carly's office that included Michael, Jocelyn, and a distraught Carly. "She's like family. But the evidence is compelling. Sometimes the people closest to us harbor the deepest resentments." Carly, ever a lioness in defense of her own, was torn. Her loyalty to Drew, her rock, was absolute. But a nagging doubt about Trina's character gnawed at her. Jocelyn, however, was a storm of outrage. "This is insane. Trina would never do this. Drew, how can you even say that? Someone is setting her up." Her defense was passionate but lacked any alternative theory. Michael watched the drama unfold with growing unease. Drew's swift, merciless move against Trina felt disproportionate, strategic. It reminded him of the cold, calculating emails Kai and Trina had now shared with him in secret, After Trina's world began to collapse, Michael was now burdened with the terrible truth. Caught between exposing Drew and protecting Trina from charges he now knew were rooted in a real crime she had committed. He became a secret ally, meeting with Kai in covert locations, trying to find a way to use the information on the hard drive without destroying Trina in the process. The tension reached its breaking point at a dramatic confrontation at the Metro court pool. Drew had called a small impromptu meeting with Carly, Jocelyn, and an invited and unsuspecting Trina. He played the aggrieved party masterfully. Trina, the police have enough to press charges. But for the sake of what we've meant to each other, for Spencer, for your mother, just admit what you did. Return what you took. We can settle this quietly. Trina, backed into a corner, her future hanging by a thread, finally snapped. The fear burned away, leaving white-hot fury. Settle this? You want me to confess to a crime to make your life neater? Her voice rang out clear and sharp, drawing the attention of other hotel guests. What about the crimes you're hiding, Drew? What about the negotiations you made at Pikeman that you told everyone you were too tortured to remember? What about the emails where you discuss using my friend's son, a little boy, as a linchpin for your corporate takeover? The air was sucked from the space. Carly gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Jocelyn stared, stunned. Drew's face went utterly still, a mask of stone, but his eyes, for one unguarded second, flashed with pure, unadulterated panic. It was all the confirmation Trina or anyone needed. You have no idea what you're talking about, Drew hissed, his composure cracking. You're a desperate girl lashing out with fantastical stories to cover your burglary. Are they fantastical, Drew? Michael's voice cut through the tension. He stepped out from behind a pillar, where he'd been listening. His face was a storm of betrayal and anger. Because I've seen them too. The custody notes. The Pikeman footage. The emails with Tartarus Holdings. She's not lying. You are. The revelation was a seismic shock. Carly looked between her cousin and the man she considered her brother, her worldview shattering.